Okay, so in this video, we're going to start our 4.2 by going over a review of inverse functions. So I have two functions here. I have f of x equals x cubed. And you could do a little table of values for that function. It's one of our basic functions. And we could get some ordered pairs. And it looks like that. I think we had one like that on the last exam. That is f of x right there. Now, when we want to make g of x, we can switch the x and y values, and we get this function. I'm going to put it in red because it's going to run into each other. Something like that, okay? Now, hopefully you can see that if you draw the diagonal, the y, trying to draw it carefully here, the y equals x line. Okay, now this function here was g of x. Okay, so these functions are inverses of each other. And when we graph them, we see that if you fold along the dotted line, the red points are gonna line up on top of the black points. It gets a little tricky there in that middle around the origin, but that's what happens. And that's the idea of inverses. We're switching x and y. So for, I didn't make the table of values, but I can. For x, f of x, we had the points -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, those x values, and we had -8, 1, 0, I'm sorry, -1, 0, 1, 8, and we graphed those. Then when we wanted to graph x, g of x, all those ordered pairs switched places. So if you're like, where did those come from? Here's where they came from. Okay, and that we did in red. Okay. So that's the idea behind inverses, and when we graph their functions, that's what happens. They reflect about the y equals x line, or that diagonal. Okay, now we also in the past have found an inverse of a function. We had those 4 steps, right? Y instead of f of x, switch x and y, solve for y. Remember those steps? That was how to find an inverse. Okay, so we're going to go through those steps, but this time we're going to use the exponential function. So step 1, to find an inverse, you write y equals b to the x. Okay, that's not a big deal, right? And step 2, you switch x and y. X equals b to the y. And then step 3, we're supposed to solve for y. And then we can do the inverse notation. Now here's where we run into a problem. How do you get that y out of the exponent spot? See, that's a little situation. You can say, well, I'll take the y root of it, the y root. Well, I can't even say it, so that's probably why we don't do it. But like you would take the square root if it were square, but it's not. It's a variable. So you can't just take this root of it. That's not going to work for us. So we want to have that y not in the exponent, but somewhere, in the equation like a base, okay? I probably shouldn't use the word base, but that's what we want. We want that y down out of the exponent position. Okay, and we're going to show you how to do that. We're going to introduce what are called logarithms now. Logarithms are going to solve that problem for us. Logarithms. Introduction to logarithms, and we'll do that in the next video.